Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Content to Play Villain. Today we're diving deeply into the chilling world of Johan Liebert, the profoundly disturbing yet endlessly fascinating antagonist from Naoki Urasawa's acclaimed anime and manga series, Monster. Johan Liebert isn't your typical villain. His profound psychological complexity, mysterious past, and subtle yet devastating methods make him an iconic figure in anime villainy. But what truly elevates Johan into the pantheon of unforgettable antagonists is how he forces us to confront disturbing truths about ourselves and society at large. Unlike many villains who simply crave power or vengeance, Johan's motivations are bound up in profound philosophical questions about identity, family, and the very nature of evil. By examining his harrowing life, his chilling methods, and the eerie symbolism that surrounds him, we can delve deeper into why Johan stands as a masterclass in creating a villain who is as hypnotic as he is horrifying. At first glance, Johan appears to be an innocent, gentle, and exceptionally bright boy whose life takes a fateful turn when he crosses paths with a dedicated neurosurgeon, Dr. Kenzo Tenma. In the year 1986, Johan is rushed to Eisler Memorial Hospital with a fatal gunshot wound to the head, an injury that might have ended his young life if not for Tenma's timely surgical intervention. This compassionate and heroic act unwittingly sets off a chain reaction of events, ultimately revealing Johan's true nature as one of anime's most sinister foes. During his initial appearances in the series, Johan's demeanor suggests a polite, well-mannered youth with an almost angelic composure. His voice, his mannerisms, and his thoughtful conversation skills win people over effortlessly. Yet there are small, unsettling signs hinting at something darker beneath his calm surface. As the story of Monster unfolds, we come to realize that Johan is anything but harmless. His intelligence is razor-sharp, his strategic thinking is unmatched, and his manipulative prowess borders on the superhuman. Crucial to Johan's arc is his connection to his twin sister, Nina Fortner, originally named Anna Liebert. The narrative gradually reveals their intertwined fates. Where Nina's path is marked by resilience, compassion, and a determination to unearth the truth, Johan's journey is characterized by secrecy, psychological warfare, and an overarching belief that life itself may hold no inherent meaning. Their shared childhood experiences, particularly those rooted in a clandestine experiment, bind them together in ways neither can fully escape. Johan's place in the story is further complicated by the moral code of Dr. Tenma, who becomes entwined in the pursuit of his former patient. Tenma, racked by guilt for saving the life that would bring such darkness into the world, devotes himself to stopping Johan. This relationship between savior and monster forms a compelling dynamic that underscores many of the series' key themes: the value of human life, the weight of moral responsibility, and the question of whether every soul is worth saving. Johan's childhood represents a tapestry of nightmares, stitched together by inhumane experimentation and relentless emotional torment. He and his twin sister, Nina, were born as part of a hidden eugenics program aimed at crafting superior humans, individuals whose intellect and charisma could be exploited for nefarious ends. From infancy, Johan was subjected to scrutiny and conditioning by figures seeking to mold him into the ideal manipulator or leader of shadowy agendas. One of the most defining moments in Johan's early life was the harrowing day their mother, Vera Serna, was forced to choose which of her twins she would give up. Initially selecting Johan, she reversed her decision at the last instant, condemning Nina to an unknown, nightmarish fate. This cruel twist inflicted a soul-deep wound in Johan, causing him to question his own worth and wonder which child his mother truly intended to abandon. This sense of being either tragically spared or wrongly chosen cast a dark shadow over his psyche, one that would drive him to obsess over identity and belonging. The emotional ripple effects of that day only worsened as Johan and Nina were separated. While Nina eventually blocked out many of her memories for the sake of survival, Johan internalized every trauma, every unsettling truth. He not only remembered what happened, but also absorbed the pain Nina endured. In a way, he attempted to become the repository of both his own suffering and his sister's, as if forging one fractured self from two broken pieces. This melding of their traumas eroded any stable sense of identity Johan might have had, paving the way for his chilling transformation in adulthood. Those behind the eugenics program didn't stop at simply tormenting a family. They put Johan and other children through psychologically harrowing experiences disguised as education. These methods range from intellectual manipulation, such as filling young minds with twisted philosophies, to subjecting them to environments where bonds of trust and empathy were systematically dismantled. Over time, Johan was effectively taught that human relationships were tools, that love was an illusion, and that morality was a hollow construct. This bleak worldview created the perfect conditions for Johan's later belief that life holds no inherent value, a belief he would wield like a scalpel to dissect the people around him. Even among the many nightmare scenarios of Johan's youth, Kinderheim 511 stands out as a turning point that revealed his capabilities. Located in East Germany, Kinderheim 511 was no ordinary orphanage. Rather, it was a covert institution designed to break children down psychologically and rebuild them into emotionless, compliant instruments of the state. The staff at Kinderheim 511 employed drastic methods, from relentless isolation to orchestrated violence, all intended to strip away individuality and empathy. After fleeing Kinderheim, Johan found temporary shelter with a seemingly benevolent foster family, the Lieberts. But once again, kindness and familial warmth failed to reform him. Instead, it only provided a stage for Johan's next violent chapter. He murdered the Lieberts coldly and manipulated Nina into firing a gun at him, thus weaving their destinies together in blood. This led to his life-threatening injury and subsequent rescue by Dr. Tenma, an act of mercy that Tenma would come to regret as the body count tied to Johan grew. This was just one of many evil acts that followed. As Johan stepped into adulthood, his infamy would spread across Germany and beyond, built on cunning strategies and an uncanny ability to read and exploit human weakness. Unlike many villains who thrive on spectacle or raw power, Johan's approach to evil remained intimate, psychological, and methodical, making him all the more terrifying. In a grim twist of gratitude, Johan repaid Dr. Tenma's life-saving surgery by poisoning the hospital director and 2 senior doctors. This wasn't just an act of cruelty, it was a calculated move that dismantled Tenma's professional rivals, eerily seeming to help Tenma's career while also sending a message that no good deed goes unpunished in Johan's universe. One of Johan's trademark methods involved ingratiating himself with vulnerable individuals, such as lonely ex-convicts, impressionable teenagers, or troubled professionals, and then gradually warping their worldview. Reinhard Dinger, for instance, was manipulated into committing multiple murders under the twisted belief that Johan offered him salvation. Similarly, Detective Richard Braun was psychologically cornered and driven to suicide. Johan never needed to brandish a weapon, his words and presence alone were lethal. In another chilling demonstration of his powers of persuasion, Johan targeted a group of schoolboys in Munich, pushing them into participating in a deadly rooftop dare. The illusions of teenage invincibility and camaraderie were skillfully twisted by Johan, resulting in tragic fatalities. What made this event especially alarming was Johan's willingness to exploit youthful bravado, exemplifying his broader philosophy that anyone can become a monster under the right, or rather, wrong circumstances. Perhaps Johan's most horrifying plan unfolded in the quiet village of Ruenheim. By distributing firearms and stoking fears, suspicions, and latent resentments among the villagers, he effectively turned the entire community into a blood-soaked battlefield. Neighbors who once greeted each other warmly were reduced to paranoia-driven killers. The scale of the carnage was staggering, yet Johan himself stood at the epicenter with an eerie calm, as if verifying his thesis that humanity inevitably unravels into violence. In each of these incidents, Johan wasn't simply committing murder. He was testing hypotheses about human nature, orchestrating tragedies to see how individuals and societies would react when confronted by fear, suspicion, or the promise of power. This makes him far more disturbing than a villain acting out of petty revenge or lust for power. Johan's crimes are thought experiments gone hideously wrong, labyrinthine scenarios that reveal just how fragile civilization truly is when manipulated by an intellect stripped of empathy. While it might be tempting to reduce Johan's evil to a single cause, Monster posits a complex tapestry of interwoven factors, psychological, environmental, and symbolic, that collectively shape his villainy. At the core of Johan's malevolence is the childhood trauma tied to his mother's forced choice and the subsequent separation from Nina. This existential wound festered as he matured, feeding the belief that he was ultimately unwanted or spared by mistake. Such a fractured sense of identity made it almost impossible for Johan to form genuine connections or develop healthy emotional bonds. Johan's experiences at institutions like Kinderheim 511 taught him that people could be easily manipulated if you knew the right emotional buttons to press. Layer this on top of the clandestine eugenics experiments he survived, and it becomes clear that Johan was shaped by a series of dehumanizing environments that rewarded cunning and ruthlessness. The series is set against a backdrop of post-Cold War Europe, where echoes of the past, neo-Nazi remnants, communist vestiges, unethical scientific research linger in the shadows. Johan can be viewed as the ultimate product of these dark historical undercurrents, embodying a kind of living testament to the atrocities that governments and secret organizations can inflict in the name of progress or ideology. Central to Johan's psyche is his identification with the children's story called The Nameless Monster, a twisted fairy tale that mirrors his own search for selfhood. Much like the nameless monster devours others to find its own identity, Johan manipulates and consumes the lives around him, as though desperately trying to fill the void where his own identity should be. This symbolic alignment underscores how deeply Johan sees himself as both victim and embodiment of an existential emptiness, leading him to test and destroy those who cling to hope or morality. In the stark contrast to the pitch-black worldview Johan represents, other characters like Tenma and Nina fight to preserve their sense of morality, empathy, and justice. Their struggle reflects the broader philosophical conflict at the heart of Monster. Is humanity fundamentally good, capable of redemption and compassion, or is it irredeemably cruel once pushed to extremes? Johan's fascination with pushing others to the brink can be interpreted as a twisted search for validation. By exposing the darkness in everyone he meets, he justifies his own nihilistic perspective. If every person can be corrupted, then his own descent into monstrosity becomes less an anomaly and more an inevitable truth of the human condition. Johan Liebert stands as an unflinching exploration of evil in its most insidious form. Far from being a simple caricature of villainy, he's a methodically crafted character shaped by unspeakable experiments, psychological abuse, and a deeply rooted existential crisis. This intricate blend of trauma, innate intelligence, and nihilistic philosophy sets him apart as one of anime's most memorable antagonists. In Johan's world, human connections are as frail as spider silk, easily torn apart by a single whisper of doubt or carefully planted seed of paranoia. He capitalizes on these fissures, reflecting a worldview that sees all social constructs such as family, friendship, and community as illusions waiting to be shattered. His crimes, from orchestrating mass violence in an orphanage to pushing entire towns into chaos, are not random acts of brutality, but chilling demonstrations of his thesis about the human condition. Yet in spite of the horror he unleashes, Monster reminds us that even someone like Johan was once a child, shaped by forces beyond his control. The tragedy lies in how these formative experiences twisted his perspective, compelling him to question the very value of life. Characters like Nina and Dr. Tenma represent possible alternatives, cases where the same harsh realities could inspire empathy, resilience, or a commitment to saving others. Johan chose a darker path, leading him to stand at the edge of existence, peering into the void and inviting others to join him. In the end, Johan's story is a cautionary tale about what happens when cruelty, neglect, and relentless manipulation collide with a brilliant, impressionable mind. It is also an unsettling mirror, reflecting how thin the line can be between reason and madness, between civilization and the chaos simmering just beneath its surface. Through Johan Liebert, Monster poses challenging questions. Are some people destined to become monsters? Or is each atrocity we witness, in part, a reflection of humanity's own complacency in allowing such creatures to emerge? Whatever conclusion one draws, there is no denying the impact Johan leaves on those who encounter his story. He transcends the usual villain archetype by embodying both victim and predator, raising profound ethical and philosophical dilemmas at every turn. For these reasons, Johan Liebert remains a character who lingers long after the final page or episode. His pale smile, soft-spoken words, and monstrous deeds etched indelibly into the psyche of anyone brave enough to look into his empty eyes. So, was Johan truly evil? That is for the viewer to assess and decide.